Hey guys, this is Coach Baker. Listen, I'm coming to you live from my garage and just trying to make a couple of videos for this second week of teacher-directed online learning. And this week we're going to talk about the book of Hebrews. Now there are a couple things that you need to be aware of. It's going to be really important this week that you read the book of Hebrews. It's 13 chapters, so it's one of the longer books toward the end of the Bible, but it is one of my favorite books in the New Testament, because one of the things that's important is how it brings the Old Testament to life. The book of Hebrews helps us understand several of the major events in the life of the Old Testament. Not only does it do that, the Old Testament actually helps us understand more of the gospel in light of the book of Hebrews. And so Hebrews is one of my favorite books. I really enjoy studying that, and in ninth grade when I teach through Genesis, we reference Hebrews and really enjoy that time there. A couple things that I want you to be aware of this week. This Friday is Good Friday, so you actually only have 2 assignments this week. So 2 days, 2 videos, and things like that. So make sure you get those lesson plans and see what's there for you. There's going to be a video each day. I do want you to watch the Bible Project video as well today. But then there's the big assignment this week. There is a journal, but I want you to work on your Hebrews Route 66 notes. Okay? That's how you're going to read through the book. Okay? It's a few pages, 3 or 4 pages. And what I want you to do with that is walk through that book, answer the questions that you can. There may be some introduction stuff that you may not find directly in the book of Hebrews, but I want you to do the best you can to answer all of those things. And then I want you to either scan that or take a picture of it and submit that to Google Classroom by the end of the week, which is this week, Thursday at, I think I said it at 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. So make sure you take care of that. Then there is a journal for you to do. But the main thing for you this week, read the book of Hebrews, watch the videos, and really begin to think. There is a reading assignment. I'm sharing with you a chapter out of that Henrietta Mears book, What the Bible's All About. I want to encourage you to read that one, because that book will help bring to light some of the things that I can only skim in a short video. Okay, and that's one of the things that makes this difficult, is there's so much in Hebrews, but trying to put it all in 2 little 10-minute videos is nearly impossible. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about, introductory stuff. We always talk about that, right? We want to know who wrote the book. Now, who do you think wrote the book of Hebrews? It's a good question. It's a question that many people have debated, and it's an unanswered question. What we know is that we don't know who wrote the book of Hebrews. And nothing wrong with that. There's speculation. There are some major ideas out there. Some believe that the Apostle Paul wrote it. And when you read it as a whole, there are some similarities to some of his other works. Now, I have to be honest with you, I'm not a Greek scholar, so breaking down the original language and all that stuff, I can't do. But when I read the book of Hebrews, it kind of mirrors how Paul writes theology, and then there's a clear break, and it talks about practical stuff. But I'm not telling you Paul wrote the book of Hebrews, because I don't know. Some say that Apollos wrote it. He was an incredibly gifted communicator, we saw in the book of Acts. Maybe he did. They have their reasons for believing that. One of the professors at Southwestern Seminary actually believes that Luke wrote the book of Hebrews, and it may have been his 3rd work that he had researched and put together. As a matter of fact, he believes it so much that he wrote over 1,000 pages on why he thinks Luke is the author. He had to cut that back some before he released his commentary. I'm telling you, we don't know who wrote it. What we do know is this: whoever the author was pretty steeped in Jewish traditions and the Old Testament. And so whether that's Paul, who grew up in it, or Luke, who researches it, they knew the Old Testament well enough to make some connecting points. And so the audience for the book of Hebrews are Jewish Christians They're Jewish Christians who have heard the gospel of Christ. They have believed the gospel of Christ. They've turned from their traditions and have begun to follow the Lord in a personal relationship. But in light of that, they're struggling to maintain their faith. Maybe they're hearing from Judaizers who are being critical of them. We know that the church at this time was experiencing a lot of persecution. And so in light of all of that, what you find is that these Jews were really wrestling with maintaining their faith. And so the author is going to connect their old tradition, their heritage, with the gospel message. And when he connects it to the gospel message, it's going to make the entire Bible become a little more clear for us. Okay? And so that's huge. So he's writing, his purpose is to encourage these Jewish Christians to keep the faith by connecting it to their Old Testament heritage. Okay, now there are a lot of themes in there, and I'm just going to give you a few of those. I shared with you my notes on the book of Hebrews, so I would encourage you to read through those. Use those as you read through the book of Hebrews, and maybe they'll help you with your Route 66 work. But you've got my notes, so there are some key themes, and one of the themes that I want to mention to you right off the bat is this: Jesus is greater. If I were to give you this question, Jesus is greater than blank, what would you say? What would you put in that blank? To me, that statement, Jesus is greater, or Jesus is more, Jesus is superior, is a statement that makes me sit and just wonder at who he is and how incredible and how awesome he is. And so when I think about that, I just want you to understand that the book of Hebrews is going to tell us that Jesus is greater than all parts of the Old Testament system. He's the fulfillment of them. And as the fulfillment, he is greater than any of them. Now let's just get into a little conversation about what's in the book of Hebrews. The first thing I would point out to you is this, that he begins talking about how God has spoken to us. Okay, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things, through whom he created the world. How has he spoken to us? He's spoken to us through the prophets. That's the old. That would reference the Old Testament as a whole. In Jesus' day, they referred to the Old Testament as the law and the prophets together. And in the latter days, he has spoken to us through his Son, Jesus Christ. Okay, and so everything that is spoken in the Old Testament is fulfilled and comes to light in the person of Jesus. And so when God wanted to say something to us about himself, what did he do? He sent his Son, Jesus. That's an incredible message. Not just the words, but the living word, the person of Jesus Christ. Now he talks about in chapter 1 the person of Jesus. And he says a few things about him, that he is God's Son. He's the heir of all things. That is, everything is his. Okay, he's the creator of the world. We've talked about this. This is a concept mentioned a number of times in the New Testament. That when God created the heaven and the earth, when God created the world, he did so through Jesus, by Jesus. Jesus was present and active in the creative process, the eternal Son of God. Okay, he is the exact reflection of God. That is, he shows us who God is. Think about this. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? You see you, right? That's what I see when I look in the mirror. I see me. And so when it's as though God is kind of giving us this idea, he's the express radiance or the exact radiance, that when God looks in the mirror, he sees Jesus. And when Jesus looks in the mirror, he sees God. Because when you and I look at the person of Jesus Christ, what he said, what he did, how he loved people, how he cared for people, how he came to redeem the world, he's just showing us that's who God is. So Jesus is the exact representation of God. And here's this thing it's going to get into. He is superior. Chapter 1 begins, he is superior to the angels. Chapter 2, he's going to talk about he's superior to the high priest. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next video. But I just kind of wanted to get the introduction stuff out of the way, what's expected this week. As always, if you have questions, email me, or I'll see you on Google Meet. It'll only be on Tuesday this week at 11 a.m. for you guys. Okay? I love you. I'm going to shoot another video, and we'll talk through as much as we can of Hebrews in it. All right?